For what purpose, the gentleman from Kentucky rise?
Move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I would like to take this opportunity to enter into a colloquy with Subcommittee Chairman Simpson, and I'm wondering if the gentleman would be willing to engage in a colloquy with me concerning the climate change provision in the bill.
I'd be happy to.
I want to ask the gentleman, first of all, if he could explain Section 1746 of the bill to me.
I'd be happy to. Section 1746 hits the pause button on the EPA's efforts to regulate greenhouse gas emissions because of what I think are unfounded fears about global climate change. As the Chairman knows, and as Mr. Whitfield knows, over the last 2 years, EPA Administrator Jackson has been very busy creating an enormous body of regulations on greenhouse gas emissions. These regulations will cost jobs, drive up energy costs, and further imperil the American economy. EPA's greenhouse gas regulations need to be stopped in their tracks, and that's what Section 1746 does. It provides a timeout for the balance of this fiscal year, during which time EPA will be prohibited from acting on them or enforcing them. Section 1746 is intended to put a halt to the regulations that we feel will harm this economy. It is not intended to affect permitting or other matters unrelated to greenhouse gas emissions, such as construction starts or permit approvals.
Well, I thank the gentleman, and I do agree with you wholeheartedly. And I might also add that Congress and the U.S. Senate have specifically addressed this issue on 3 separate occasions, and on every one of those 3 occasions had said no to EPA regulation. I might also add that last week we had a hearing with Administrator Jackson, and Mr. Green, our colleague from Texas on the Democratic side, asked her a question, and he said, "My question is this: what happens if only the United States acts to reduce these emissions, while major emitters like China or India do not take action, do not follow suit? Can we really address climate change without strong mandatory reductions by other major emitters around the world?" And Ms. Jackson, the administrator of the EPA, said, "We will not ultimately be able to change the amount of CO2 that is accumulating in the atmosphere alone." So I would say to you, Mr. Chairman, that EPA's regulations will lead to higher costs for the coal industry, the oil industry, and natural gas industries that comprise 85% of America's energy mix, burdening both individuals and businesses, and most important of all, destroying jobs. So let me ask the gentleman, is this a debate about global warming science?
No, it's not even necessary to be a climate change skeptic to be an EPA greenhouse gas regulation skeptic. These regulations are all economic pain for little, if any, environmental gain. EPA can only regulate American companies, and we know that China already emits more carbon dioxide than we do. Its rate of emissions growth is many times faster than ours, and the Chinese government has repeatedly made clear that they will never impose such job-destroying regulatory measures on themselves. Even Administrator Lisa Jackson, as you said, has concluded that unilateral action would have little or negligible impact on further temperatures.
Thank you, and I do want to mention that the Committee on Energy and Commerce has released a discussion draft on exactly this same issue called the Energy Tax Prevention Act that would block EPA's global warming agenda under the Clean Air Act. The bill does not weaken the Clean Air Act, however. It would have no effect on the agency's ongoing efforts to deal with smog, soot, lead, mercury, and all the other pollutants that have been addressed under the Clean Air Act. It is simply a bill to stop the agency and bureaucrats from issuing regulations absent congressional approval. As our former chairman John Dingell said, avoiding the glorious mess is what we would be doing, because the Clean Air Act was never designed to regulate greenhouse gases. As it is, EPA's global warming regulatory agenda, which is just beginning to roll out, is so open-ended that it is already having a chilling effect on investment and job creation. And the longer it moves forward, the more domestic manufacturing jobs will be forced overseas to countries not similarly burdened.
Would the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
When do you expect Congress to act on the Energy Tax Prevention Act?
Well, we've already had our first hearing, which was February the 9th. We've heard from a wide range of industries about the job creation issue, and I expect that we'll be moving this legislation within the next month and a half.
I thank the gentleman.
Time of the gentleman has expired.